What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Take the North podcast along with Dan Wiederer of The Athletic. I am Mark Grote of Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Good to have Dan back to get his hands on this Bears game that we all witnessed on Monday night. A Bears 27-24 loss to the Minnesota Vikings. Rahimi, Dan, did a great job filling in for you, but it is good to have you back, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about what turned out to be a sports relative disaster on Monday Night Football compared to what the hype was and all of the festivities that were going on. Just another absolute dud in terms of the hype.
I listened to the post-game pod of Take the North on my drive home from Soldier Field early Tuesday morning in the 1 o'clock hour. I thought you and Layla did a nice job. Then on Tuesday morning, Grote, I did a little thing on the Athletics website with Kevin Fishbane where we talked. I wanted to read you this comment from that. I think it's called A Stage. Kevin Fishbane can give us a better understanding of what we did in that forum. But it's a listener that clearly listens to our podcast, and he dropped a comment while we were doing this and said, "This is the first time I've seen Dan W's picture. I've only heard him on podcasts. I expected he would be balder, fatter, and sporting a stash." Your reaction?
That's hilarious. I mean, like, we all do that where we have an idea or we think we have an idea of what somebody looks like based on their voice. But yeah, like fat
It's one
guy,
of those classic thank you.
Yeah, I don't really know how to take. I actually think I got that once too. Like somebody said that they thought I would be like a bigger, taller man, and I'm about 6 feet tall, like you. You're probably a little over 6 feet tall, would be my guess. And
indeed.
Dan is thin as a rail, and at the moment I'm about 25 pounds overweight, so I didn't let him down in terms of the big.
You shave your head, get a stash, and then you'll know what crowd you're in. Just thought I'd bring a little levity out of the gate. Obviously, it's another heavy day in Chicago, right? Like you're staring at an 0-1 start, and to me, it wasn't just the 0-1 start, Grote. It was the nature of it. It's the fact that you had the game won. You're up 11 points in the third quarter. You've got a chance offensively to absolutely land the knockout punch, and then ultimately, 3 drives later, after you kind of stumble all over yourselves, the Vikings have a 10-point lead. And how that went from an 11-point lead to a 10-point deficit was mystifying with the amount of sloppiness, the number of errors. And I think that's what makes last night, Monday night, so painful because it wasn't like, oh, they lost to a good team by 3 points and it was a close game all the way to the end. It was, we literally had this victory in our hands and we tripped and fumbled it away. And so I think that's what's leaving people a little bit upset. I think you and I both want to get into some little picture stuff as we go through this, but I wanted to start you with a big picture question because I really feel like there's going to be this tug of war here in Chicago for the next month of sorting through the emotions of this is different under Ben Johnson and his staff versus same old Bears. Here we go again. And I feel like you could feel that all day Tuesday of people trying to pull that rope one way or the other to gain comfort. And I'm wondering how you feel about this whole, like, is it different or is it same old Bears? And how long do we have to wait until we know?
I mean, it did feel like same old Bears, and it did, like, I almost feel like Ben Johnson is almost a victim by now because it's every single coach. Every coach that comes into Halas Hall comes in dancing. They're skipping into Halas Hall. Matt Nagy's coming in with the big playbook, and he's all excited, and everything's going to be great. And then he's out the door. Here comes Matt Eberflus, and he's going to bring discipline and defense back to the Chicago Bears. Well, Nagy actually had defense sort of accidentally because of Vic Fangio, but and it's everything is exuberant. They're out there doing the 7th inning stretch. It's all like this big parade of goodness, and I think fans embrace the new. And then when a game actually occurs, things go sideways. So guess what? While I do think this coach is different, and I by no means am backing off on any of the plaudits that I've handed to Ben Johnson, that game was just as bad as any game as any Bears coach has coached. And I'm not saying it's all his fault, and we'll get into what he is responsible for, but that's just as bad as any of the other coaches that we have, in some cases, laughed out of town. So the honeymoon has been pretty strong for Ben Johnson, probably bigger than any of the other coaches. And Nagy's was pretty big, I thought, just because of the Andy Reid factor. But this is the first star head coach, dare I say, that the Bears have brought in since Wanstead, I suppose.
If even then, right? Like I don't even know if that would qualify. You've got a guy that's so proven here. It really felt, Grody, like Monday night was this sort of rude awakening on a number of levels. Where number one, it's like Ben's first glimpse in regular season meaningful action that, oh boy, this team has a very thin margin for error, and when we make a bunch of sloppy mistakes, we're going to get ourselves beat, which they did on Monday night. And then it is, I'm walking off the field at the end of my first game as Chicago Bears coach, and there's people booing, right? Like, which is this reminder that, like, you're not responsible for the scars and the baggage of the past, but you're not able to escape them either there in the people that are in the seats. And the to me, it was like the period of forgiveness that every single head coach that's taken this job in my lifetime has had in the early stages of their first season is already gone. Like, people just, they don't have the patience level. They don't. They need to have it. They understandably don't. And so it's going to be this tension that hovers. And now it's up to you inside the building, coaches and players, to figure out how to wall off that tension, to figure out how to deal with it. But it's there, and it's not going away. And the only way to make it sort of subside is to put together a few winning performances.
Dan, it's fear. It's fear is what it is. That you're feeling the lack of patience and fear, because there's no way the Bears are gonna have another quarterback fail.
Yeah.
There's no way another head coach, this star head coach, who could have gone anywhere and chose the Bears and made a point of it during his interviews with the powers that be. There is a fear factor, and that is partly responsible for why people can be so caustic online. Like, some of it just because people are dicks, and that's just the way it is. But the other part of it is that people are just so scared. And I take that into account, even the people that are nasty. You know, I'm like, I feel like you're just scared and you need to be held because you're a Bears fan who is insisting that this quarterback is going to be great, that this coach is going to be great. And I get it, because I have said the same things. I said Caleb Williams is going to be great. I said Ben Johnson is going to be great. And I'm not pulling back from either yet. But last night, just it's scary, Dan. That's the word that I'm going to use.
Are you saying, Rocky, that you're afraid?
All right, I'm afraid. For the first time in my life, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of losing what I got.
In this case, it's not the first time in your life that you felt this, and that's what you're talking about. It's this combination of fear, and then it's mixed with the frustration and the fatigue of the experience of being a follower of the Chicago Bears, and understanding, like, you know, I got a text in a group thread on Tuesday morning saying I can't wake up every Monday for the next 17 weeks like this, you know, from a buddy. And you're like, yeah, I get it. I'm walking out of the Soldier Field press box on Monday night, and I'm just thinking, like I've got this new lease on life with this new job at The Athletic and this beautifully exploding podcast that I do with you. And you feel very excited and exuberant. And then you experience Monday night and you're like, oh, we're going to do this. Okay. We're going to do this again. We're going to go down and have to do an autopsy the day after every game, trying to figure out why the body is so dead. Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think it's probably our next step is to try to figure out why the Bears lost, and are the reasons they lost things that can be quickly shored up, or are some of them things that it's like, that it's legitimate fear because the flaws are so real and they're not easily correctable.
Well, yeah, let's start with some penalties. The Bears had 12 penalties for 127 yards. And I should say, as we were recording this here, this is the day after the Bears loss on Monday night. Dan and I have just gotten off within the last 15 minutes a Zoom call, a virtual interview with the head coach of the Bears, with the rest of the media corps. And, you know, much came from that. And I should give one quick injury nugget here, too. He did say, Ben Johnson, at the beginning of the presser, that the good news is that nobody got injured last night, which would suggest that DJ Moore is okay, despite taking what looked like a devastating hit in the fourth quarter where Caleb Williams was clobbered and DJ Moore was clobbered. He walks off the field gingerly, I suppose I will say, and somehow, as DJ Moore does, that guy has taken some vicious hits and then returned to games. I think it was at a preseason game last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, where he just took this awful hit, and I'm up there tweeting away saying, as a former sideline reporter, I know what a player looks like when a player is not going to come back in. And then DJ Moore came back in to the game, but then he also had to zip to the injury tent. So that is good. Looks like he is okay.
He's a tough SOB. Nashawn Wright, who could have been the hero of the night, also went down in I think it was the fourth quarter, and you thought, okay, is this cramping? Is there something going on with his calf, his knee? Couldn't really get a feel on that. Ben gives us reason to believe that there's nothing serious there, so that's good news for a player who was felt last night, both in good ways and bad. I think you would agree with me. I went back and did my rewatch on Tuesday morning, and I started with the TV copy, one, because I love the inside of Troy Aikman, and I just wanted to hear how the broadcast went and kind of how he put eyes on both quarterbacks, JJ McCarthy and Caleb Williams, and two, because you get sound, and reliving the Nashawn Wright 74-yard interception return and reliving the two defensive series for the Bears that followed. Soldier Field was electrified. It was revved up. People were juiced up, and you had a quarterback making his first start in JJ McCarthy completely on the ropes, and you're like, okay, double-digit lead, defense playing its ass off. All you have to do is not stumble across the lever to the trap door, and you're walking out of here 1-0 with a lot of good spirits. And then, alas, they stumbled onto the lever of the trap door, and down they went.
Yeah, it's just shocking. And that when McCarthy, when he runs it in to make it ultimately 27-17, it's lights out, and I'm watching people in the south end zone, or is that the north end zone that's closest to us in the press box, watching them that's the south end zone, watching them do the reluctant get up and walk out of Soldier Field, which was such a juxtaposition with people getting into their seats early and the party that was going on outside of Soldier Field with the merriment of Vikings fans out there too, which I even thought was cool to see all that. I love, this division, the North, and seeing all the fans sort of come together. The 85 Bears.
Jim Cornelison, the 85 Bears. It was like the Chicago cocktail, right? Like if you want to get there and get revved up and feel that buzz, they made it for you, and they made it stiff. And one of these years they're going to capitalize on that type of environment. And it looked like they were, through 2 quarters and 3 quarters of the third quarter, it felt like they were ready to really put their stamp on the start of this season. Alas, they didn't. I know we've collected a couple pieces of audio here. Do you want to start with the Ben Johnson confession, or you want to start with a small thumbnail into the penalties?
I want to do that because I just brought that up. Let's start with the penalties. Yeah, Dan and I each had got an opportunity to ask Ben Johnson a question, so we'll play both of our questions. As it turned out, they both had good answers. It doesn't always happen, but in this case, it did for both Dan and I. The Bears had 12 penalties for 127 yards. Dan, set this up however you would like.
Yeah. So look, they had 8 flags thrown on their offense, 7 accepted, and a Kyle Monangai hold that was declined. Of those 8 flags that the offense had in an NFL football game in week 1, 4 of them were of the false start variety. It's troubling. On the surface, you go, why do they keep false starting? And you go back and watch it, and you see, okay, one of them is on a motion. DJ Moore is motioning, and the timing of the snap count is completely off. 2 of the other false start penalties, there's multiple players who jump. It's Jonah Jackson called for both of them. One of them, Braxton Jones, jumps with them. The other one, Darnell Wright, jumps with them. And you go, And so it was worth posing to the head coach, who is going to yank his hair out over these types of mistakes. What exactly is happening, and how do you get it fixed? And so here was a little bit of the back and forth on Tuesday afternoon with Ben Johnson.
And the false starts were obviously an issue throughout the night, and they came in different forms. One was with a motion. 2 of them had 2 guys jumping at the same time. What's the process of getting that fixed quickly?
Yeah, I guess silent cadence, right? Maybe that'll help here this week. We can go on that, and we're going to need to do that. We're going to need to be really good at that, because this is going to be a loud environment that we're going to. It's going to be a playoff-like atmosphere. Ford Field has been something else over the last couple of years, and so we're going to have to be at our best. But certainly we We haven't been good enough over the course of camp. We haven't been good week one, and so this is going to be a huge point of emphasis for us going forward.
I love it.
I was
Dan.
trying to explain to people on Tuesday, Grote, both friends, folks outside the schoolhouse on Tuesday morning, that while this was most of the world's first glimpse at the Bears offense for an extended period of time, you and I have been watching this type of stuff since May, June, July, August. These weren't new issues that were popping up. These are issues that have persisted with the offense since the spring, in part because of that stuff that we've been talking about for months now. Operational command, the ability to handle the pre-snap smoothly. One of the things folded into that is the quarterback's cadence, which clearly we've learned over the last 6 weeks to 2 months hasn't been at a acceptable level for the NFL, right? And so now you're in a situation where you want your quarterback to use cadence as a weapon, and not only can't he do that, he can't even use it functionally. So these are one of those issues where the alarm bells start going off in your head right away, where you're like, oh God, if you're going to have 4 false start penalties in a half of a Monday night game against a division opponent, you are really, really hurting your chances to win a football game based on the inability to handle stuff pre-snap that should be smooth and easy and keep everybody kind of, like a good orchestra playing together. And instead you're clunky and rickety and you're behind the sticks. And then you have to try to climb out of the holes you've dug for yourself. And that's worrisome that, Ben, you heard the audio there. There was a look that Ben gave on that Zoom call about the question about going to a silent cadence, which was just like, yeah, holy cow, I can't believe I'm here. Like, are they going to go to silent cadence at home when they're back here in 2 weeks to play the Cowboys? I mean, get out of here, right?
Yeah, I mean, and this is why, like, for people who have given up on Ben Johnson after one game thinking it's the same old stuff, this is why you shouldn't, because he immediately had an answer. He saw what you saw. The look on his face, Dan, right, during the Zoom was that of disgust. That, yes. That's basically saying, without saying it, Dan, that's a good question you just asked. Obviously, it was front of his mind because he came right out with it. Like, it was almost like an involuntary response.
Yeah.
Maybe we got to go to silent count. So he's already working solutions in his mind, and he is in sync with the rest of the world. He saw what we saw, and I don't think we saw a lot of that with some of the predecessors that were here.
This is one of like 5 important boxes that Caleb's got to check with at least faint pencil very soon if they are to have any chance of being a legitimate football team in 2025. Right. We can get into some of the other Caleb stuff when you feel like it fits within this episode. Sure. But this is one small thing, right? Like that, like your quarterback has to be functional in quarterback responsibility. You know what I mean? And this is what I'm trying to hammer home to people. Like, Caleb is really special with his arm talent. He's really special with his ability to make plays off script and on the move as a runner or a passer. There's things there that you watched it on Monday night where you go, yeah, you can't give up on this prematurely. Like, there's too much special folded into this talent here to get jumpy and pull the plug on this. At the same time, QB1 jobs are QB1 jobs, and you can't just say I'm really special in these other areas, so I'm just going to live with all my flaws in these very basic functional areas of playing the position. That is where this whole conversation gets the most scary, I think, Grote, because you just don't know how quickly the Bears can get that into Caleb. And given the struggles that they had throughout training camp, you're like, this has become the consistency. The inconsistency has become the consistency.
Well, and how do you say it, Dan? As an extension to that, Dan, the question that I'm asking out loud and on the radio and on this podcast to anybody who I feel like I respect that can answer the question is it fixable? That's the question. Is it fixable? And it's going to be hard to get a no out of people at this point because of what you just said, because the arm talent is irresistible. But that's a question I'm going to be asking, on the radio, transparently out loud, and behind the scenes too, because that's it. That's the whole thing. If it feels like, and we had Tim Jenkins on today on The Score, the quarterback guru and expert, and a guy who has coached a lot of quarterbacks, and he said, yes, it should be. Yeah, stuff like that should be fixable. It's a matter of how much time it'll take and how patient people will be. And I'm not saying like you and I or even the folks listening to this podcast. I'm talking about the people inside
the building.
How patient will they be?
I'm glad you went there because I want to ask you this question because I was asked last week by somebody what was my personal timeline for drawing conclusions from the interpretation of Caleb Williams' play this season, right? Like, when are we going to know what we're seeing from Caleb Williams? And this is the answer I gave. I said 7 games. And here's my rationale. The Bears have 4 games in September, and they feel very sort of encouraged by where their bye week falls this year. As early as it is in the first week of October, Ben Johnson feels like it gives them the month of September to figure out who they are and who they are not, and then sort of step back in week 5 and make the adjustments, make the tweaks. And then after you've made the adjustments and the tweaks, now you get 3 games to try out the adjustments and the tweaks. And so this is just me. It's an arbitrary timeline for sure. Let's get through the 7th game, take a look at what's improved, what hasn't, and start to draw conclusions. Are you okay sitting in the passenger seat of that caravan as we drive it toward, the start of week 9 to get that answer?
This came up on the score today, and my answer to that exact question is I'm a little bit more generous. 8 or 9 games is what I said. So essentially, I'm saying half a season. That's okay. what I am willing to give it, and that is because of the irresistible arm talent, the how could you possibly give up on this guy, that talent? And maybe some of it is just a shot in the dark, and maybe I'm living in the USC past at this point, and I should get over his college highlights, but I can't, and I haven't gotten over it yet. So I give him 8 or 9 games.
So here's where that gets tested, right? And this is where my own sort of patience gets tested in this regard, because this is not the traditional reboot with a new coach. This is a new coach coming into a roster that he feels like is competitive enough to win now. And so when that force is added into the equation, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going to have to live with some of this. I'm going to have to try to work some of this out on the fly. But if the Bears are 1-4 coming out of the Washington game, does your patience get tested a little more where you're like, man, like we're about to watch this entire season go down the drain if we don't find an answer quicker? And so the question is can you start to make improvements in these areas, but can you also create a situation where you understand the urgency of what's at hand, and that's where I think that Ben's going to get tested a little bit with his own patience, is figuring out where to be graceful and where to be like, screw it, I can't handle this anymore. We've got to find a way to get this stuff right.
Yeah. And will the players speak up? Will their patience be tested? Will the captain's voices be tested? Will the wide receivers' voices be heard in terms of that? And really, Dan, it really depends on if it's bad. If they're 1-4, it depends how bad it looks.
Yeah.
If it's ugly and the false starts are, if we can discern that the false starts are because of Caleb Williams's cadence or lack thereof, and there's just incompetence from a mental standpoint at the quarterback position, making sure everybody is in place and that you've got the snap count, all of that stuff, like then of course I would amend my call. But I'm saying, like, it's a fluid situation, but on the surface, 8 or 9 games. But yeah, if it gets really bad, I'm not just gonna try to be right. You know what I'm saying? Like I am whatever.
Well, stay here with me before we get on to Ben's confession, because I think Caleb's performance, I know you've talked about this. I haven't listened to any of it yet, and I will on WSCR 670, The Score, about Caleb's performance in his debut of 2025. Because like it just didn't feel steady in any way. You got off to a good start. You've complete your first 10 passes. You lead a touchdown drive to open the game. But even within that, there was some flaws where you're like, okay, let's keep an eye on this. And then there was just like a really impressive play followed by a really bad play, and a really good throw followed by a throw that's a Ricky Vaughn wild pitch to the backstop, where you're like, wait a second, why did you miss just a bit outside, right? Like there were too many of those. And the two obviously that spring to mind for everybody are the 4th and 3 to DJ Moore first half. It's a big moment in the game where you're trying to get points out of a drive, and you call up a play that you think can work, and it does work, and everything goes according to plan. And then the quarterback misses the receiver by 5 feet. And then the very same route and throw is run in that critical end of third drive that ended up costing the Bears the game. And Caleb misses to Cole Kmet by a wide margin, and what would have been like a 16 to 18 yard gain that would have shortened the field goal, that would have given the Bears at least a 14-point lead. And now all of a sudden you got different game dynamics at play. So what was your overall take of what you watched from Caleb, both the highs, the lows, and some of the lows where you're like, oh, yeah, what was that?
Yeah, well, I'm going to stay right along the lines of what you were talking about, like the successive plays, like good plays. That's just like you and I have seen just about everything that's gone on with Caleb in camp in the last 2 years, and that's been part of the story. There's a great play. Next play is a dud. Like I'll go back to I think this was late third quarter, Bears leading 17-6. Caleb with that 22-yard pass to DJ Moore on play action. Then the next play, Dan, I think it was the next play, 3-yard loss to Luther Burden. You have that down too? The loss to Burden, and then eventually Caleb has a ball deflected. Then you have a 3rd and 13, and they go to Colston Loveland. Was that the play that he kind of bobbled? He caught.
No, that one was earlier in the game. That was just a standard little 4-yard completion on 3rd and long, and you had a punt.
So then you get a long 4th down. So I jotted that down too. So you and I are thinking along the same lines as like there's just like these drives, you just don't get the back-to-back good plays. The momentum doesn't carry. Now, the first drive was great. I loved seeing it. It was a tight hitting the dunk, the layups. Yeah, all of it like that was great, but it turned out to not be sustainable. The other one, Dan, that I'll throw out there is the first drive of the third quarter. That drove me crazy, man. You get the ball in that third quarter, you go 3 and out right away. The short pass out of reach for DeAndre Swift, short pass to the right, out of reach for Cole Kmet. And then he throws behind Olamide Zaccheaus with pressure coming. That one was like pound your fist on the table because you can't go 3 and out coming out of the third quarter, and you've got a 10-6 lead at that time. And Nahshon Wright made it feel okay for a little while because he gets a 74-yard pick six, and you go up 17-7, I guess, eventually. But yeah, those are some thoughts right off the top of my head.
Those 3 to start the second half, they were all thumbs down plays for me. I wrote down wild pitch. I wrote down nothing really open, but why so jumpy? And then on the third down play, the miss to Zaccheaus, there was a little bit of a dramatic flail at the end. There was a little bit of pressure, but then Caleb, like, he missed the throw and then he kind of dramatically flailed forward. And you're like, just like relax, like calm down a little bit and like get resettled in this football game and just guide this ship where it needs to go. And it wasn't there. And again, like, then you get the gift, you get the defensive gift. And now all you have to do is figure out a way to deliver the kill shot at some point over the last, quarter and a third. And then that whole spiraling series at the end of the third quarter, it was so disheartening. And the reason that I come back to that, because I'd like to get your take on this. Let's be real candid and forthright with our audience. The holding call against Darnell Wright was bullshit. It's a bullshit call. The Bears will turn that into the league. The league will send a response and say, I think we blew that one. Darnell Wright says after the game, look, like, if you tug on a jersey, it's a hold. If you knock the guy's arms down, it's not a hold. I knocked the guy's arms down. I don't know why the official saw something different. It's a bullshit call. No doubt. Backs you up into 2nd and 20 at the 34 instead of 1st and 10 at the 12. Bad swing of event. But the Bears had 3 opportunities on that very series to salvage something out of that drive. And they blew every one of them, right? Like, you have this wild pitch to Kmet. You have the intentional grounding from Caleb, and it can't take a sack in any circumstance type of situation. And then you have your kicker miss a 50-yard kick. And so my point is, like, we could sit here every single week after every loss and bitch about the officiating. Good teams overcome it. Good teams recognize that you're still up double digits at that point. And even if you don't overcome it on that drive, you've got a million other chances to win the football game. So to bitch about that call, which was a big call in the game, and it was a momentum shifter, it's the loser's lament. And it's foolish. I can't bring myself anywhere near that neighborhood to engage in that conversation while still acknowledging that the call sucked. And it was a bad call by the officiating crew, but just get over it, right? Like, get over it, move on, and do something about it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'm glad you brought up the Cairo Santos miss of that 50-yarder. That drive, my God, because I love the drive. Like that, you had DeAndre Swift with lowering a 9-yard play. What's that?
Lowering his pads the whole drive.
Lowering his pads. Oh yeah. The 9-yarder, he had a 5-yarder. I think he had another 12-yarder. So it was like the DeAndre Swift rally. You're finally starting to see what you would consider to be like a Ben Johnson-esque drive, letting the run game lead the way. And then you get the hold on Darnell Wright, like you said, the bad call. Caleb overthrows Kmet on what would be considered a layup, and then the grounding call on Caleb Williams, setting up, okay, we'll take our field goal, accept your field goal, and then they missed the field goal. It was a big waste of time, basically, that entire drive, as much as I was kind of putting stars by it for a while.
Right.
Like, okay, here we go. Swift is looking good. The offensive line is opening holes, and then it turns out to be a disastrous drive.
It's what I wrote from the press box on Monday night. It was the sequence that opened the door for a very good football team on the other sideline to believe that they had a chance, right? And Kevin O'Connell, I think we've got him now at 27-9 in one-score games. You give a team behind him belief that they can come back and get back into a ball game, you're in trouble. And they got back into the ball game quickly after that. They scored a touchdown, missed the 2-point conversion, but now it's 17-12, and now you're in a dogfight instead of either being up 18 points, or being up 2 scores, to 20-6 if you get a field goal out of that. Didn't get a chance to catch up with Cairo in the locker room there as we were scurrying around. That kick on rewatch, I mean, it took a right turn. And so I don't know if that was wind aided, if it was, struck in a way that created a little banana ball slice there. I'm curious to understand what happened there. And then obviously this may be a good bridge into what you've got from Ben, the inability to get the kickoff out of the end zone late in the game when you need all the clock you can handle to try to come back was another major miss by Cairo, and 2 really, really rough moments for a kicker who's usually pretty reliable.
I followed up with Ben Johnson as an extension of something he said after the game on Monday night. He talked about how, he took responsibility. He put some of it on his shoulders, but there was no specific questions about that, which is understandable because everybody wants to get to the stuff that's actually going on in the game. So I did follow up with Ben Johnson on his part in things that might have gone wrong in the Bears' 27-24 loss to Minnesota.
Hi, Ben. You mentioned yesterday that you guys all share responsibility in the loss, including yourself. Is there anything specific that you could share with us that you would want back?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I just talked about the challenge. That's a big one right there. That timeout in the second half, those things are very valuable, and having that at the end of the game would have been huge for us. I didn't think I called a particularly great game. I could have adjusted a little bit better to the lack of pressure that Flo was giving us. And so I can do a better job there. And then at the end of the game, felt like we could kick it out of the back. We weren't able to get that done. In hindsight, I should have kicked it out of bounds.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I appreciate him being honest about all of those things. Did you see how hard he threw that challenge flag, by the way, when all the players were kind of like, I felt like there was a little bit of peer pressure or something, like the players were all like, come on, throw that flag. And then he just hurled that thing from the sideline.
Well, I got to tell you this on that, because I too, with my own eyes on the scoreboard version of the replay, thought I saw what Ben saw, where I thought I saw Hawkinson's knees off the ground. I don't know
what the players thought they saw. And
I don't know what the optic illusion would have been. Well, the folks upstairs for the Bears saw the knees on the ground on the TV copy and were like, don't challenge. Like that was an edict given to Ben, and Ben had an optic illusion like I had, and like, I think his knees are off the ground, and Noah Sewell comes in and delivers a pretty good punch on that football, and it's out, and you start to believe you saw something you didn't. I appreciate Ben acknowledging that and being willing to be kind of self-critical. Like, there's not a lot of coaches that are going to do that in this forum. They would just kind of balk at you and make you feel silly for trying to question them on what they're doing. But I think that's part of being a leader is acknowledging that you have a role in this. I think the troubling thing in there is when you can't trust your kicker to get a football out of the end zone in September. Now you've got bigger discussions that you have to have inside the building. And I don't think you're going to go there right away with Cairo Santos, but man, like that should be something that you can handle, right? Like kicking a football through the back of the end zone in 2025 should be something you can handle. And the Vikings' ability to recognize the ball didn't get where it needed to go and to come out and to get that, clock under the 2-minute stoppage was a huge deal, because it got the ball back to the Bears with like, what was it, 17 seconds by the time they got their hands on the ball for the last time there?
Yeah, right around 7, maybe a little bit less than 17 seconds, maybe. But yeah, the point stands, and I didn't even get a chance to throw a Hail Mary. I was like, how strong is your arm? Caleb Williams, but it didn't work out. Zeros show on the clock, and it was just very depressing at the end. Dan, we are coming up on our deadline here for the show, but is there anything else that you want to get out here before we rock out? We got a couple more minutes here.
Yeah, one quick one for you. I'm just curious how the Bears respond given what's ahead of them. You have to go to Detroit now for your first road game against the two-time defending champion Lions. And I know the Lions did not look good Sunday at Lambeau Field in their loss to the Packers, but that's still the Lions over there, right? And Ben knows that as well as anybody. So this is pretty daunting. And then behind that, Grote, is a visit from Matt Eberflus, who, as we've learned very, very clearly over recent weeks, certainly knows what Caleb Williams' limitations and flaws are for week 3, right?
Yeah, it was just as funny you said. I just literally took out my little chart of schedule, the wins and losses here. I'm showing again on the video here, and these things we could all scrap because it's the predictions that we make. But I had the Bears initially, and this is when the schedule came out. I did have the Bears winning that game against Minnesota. Now, I actually did not pick the Bears to win when I made my official prediction. I picked the Bears to lose by 3.
You're a waffler, are you? You're a waffler.
I do have the Bears. That I did, and probably still will have the Bears losing to the Lions. And yeah, it's just because of what you said. They essentially were embarrassed by the Green Bay Packers. I mean, that is not what they wanted to show without their, Dan Campbell. I mean, that had to feel horrible for him. They are going to want a pound of flesh from the Bears when they come in. Not Ben Johnson coming in and having lost that first game at Green Bay, at Lambeau Field. This is their home opener. I don't feel good at all about that. And I did have the Bears losing to Dallas in my initial predictions. That's pre-Micah Parsons being traded, but that's what I had, just because Dallas is typically, and things may be different now, I know they lost their opener. Typically, Dallas is good early in the season, and then they fold and collapse late in the season.
They played all right against the Eagles in the curtain lift game last week.
Yeah.
It's scary. I mean, the Lions have the advantage this week also with preparation time. Like they've got a regular week, and the Bears are trying to figure out for the first time under Ben Johnson, how do we structure a short week? It sounds to us that like they're not going to have a practice on Wednesday. It's going to be a closed walkthrough. Then you're going to go into Thursday and Friday trying to get your traditional Thursday and Friday practices in. But you've had to turn the page from a really stinging loss on Monday night really quickly to get yourself ready for one of the hardest teams in the conference to play on the road in their building, albeit with new coordinators. It ain't going to be easy. And that's where this all of a sudden is like, ugh.
Hey, Dan, the good news is, though, if they win that game, the party is so back on.
It's the NFL, right? It is the NFL. But I think like when we started the show talking about the fatigue and the fear, that's part of it. Is staring down the barrel of like, oh God, there's no gimmies on our schedule. We're not a good enough team to have gimmies on our schedule. And not only are there no gimmies, the next challenge up is against a really good football team that's wounded after a season opening loss in Green Bay.
All right, we got to get out of here. We got to hit our 5:30 deadline. That doesn't mean anything to anybody right now who's listening to the podcast. But we shall leave ye with that. We'll be back. We'll be all over this season for the Chicago Bears. For Dan Wiederer of The Athletic and frequent valuable contributor to The Score, for our executive producer, Adam Studzinski, I am Mark Grote saying thank you for watching and listening to the Take the North podcast.
Great talk. See you out there.